Hello everyone, welcome back to Naomi's Bookshelf. I did participate in the reading rush and I realized after the fact that I have read a total of 18 books so far this month, which is insanity. So I'm gonna do a separate reading rush wrap up in case you didn't watch my vlogs. They were a bit long, at least long for me. So I wanted to make sure I dedicate a little bit of a review to these books. And then I will do a third and final review of the month's books after I'm finished the month's reading. I think I have a couple more books left in me to read, but we'll see how much I get done. So we're gonna get into the first book of the reading rush. So the first book that I have on my pile from the reading rush is The Pharaohs Daughter by Misu Andrews. Now this one I really enjoyed. It's a Moses retelling from the book of Exodus in the Bible, and it is something that I had never read before. I've never read a Moses retelling before, and I really loved this. It really focuses on the Pharaoh's daughter, the one who takes him out of the water and saves his life. It also follows a bit of those around him, especially the Hebrews who would be enslaved at that time. It was very good and I really appreciated this. I really liked seeing the different dynamics that were happening in Egypt at the time. This does take the idea, and I think in history there are a couple options, but one of the options is that King Tutankhamun was the king at the time of the Pharaoh ordering all the babies to be killed. And so I think that's what this one took, and I actually really understood that to be quite accurate. At least it sounded accurate, and I read the author's note about the historical facts, and it seemed like she did a really great job. At the beginning, she also put in family trees. So this family tree is all historical people. There's like a history or biblical, and she also did one for the Hebrews as well. So both biblical and historical people were involved in this writing. I really enjoyed it and I give it 5 stars. I thought this was a really, really great look at ancient Egypt, and I just really did enjoy learning about Egypt through a new light and seeing how it would have been for Moses growing up. So yeah, I loved it. So the next book on my stack was The Trial of Levi Weeks, or The Manhattan Well Mystery by Estella Fox Kelliger. Now this one was a bit of a disappointment. It did cover the trial in 1800 where Levi Weeks was accused of murdering his girlfriend or fiance, and it's not really sure what relationship they did have, whether it was just boarding at the same home or if they were actually romantically involved. And this kind of covers what potentially could have happened. It does all cover the trial court and the case files and the evidence, also along with statements, like witness statements and trial records. This is also quite an interesting case in the light of the fact that this was the first ever case in New York to have defense attorneys. So that is a big part of why this case is important. Also with the fact that Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton were 2 of the 3 defense attorneys. So I found that to be kind of interesting. They weren't main characters, but they were the defense in this story. It is short, but the problem I had with this was that the history was really great, and I loved reading the court records and all of that, but I also really found the in-between part really dry and boring. This was written 30 years ago, and so there was some politically incorrect language and some offensive language in that way, but I thought it was a good history thing if you are interested in the court history. Also, if you're interested in Alexander Hamilton, he does make an appearance in this, obviously. So, I mean, it's worth a read, but it's also something where it's a little dry. So I gave it 3 stars. The next book was my other disappointing book of the week, which was really sad. And that is The Jane Austen Society by Natalie Jenner. So this one I got as an ARC, but I did purchase a copy myself. And I also bought the audiobook because I could not focus on the book, and it just seemed to be a book problem. I know that many people have loved this book, but it was not good in my opinion. I felt like this book needed to be a lot longer or a lot more focused. This one had a lot of characters, and it tried to focus on each character individually. Now, that is not a problem if there were like 4 main characters, but there were like 7 main characters, and I didn't like that we had to focus on every single person as much as we did. There were so many things that were not needed, and then so many things that needed to be expanded on. So this follows the fictional, because it's not true, the fictional starting of the Jane Austen Society and how that came to be. This follows several characters, like I mentioned. There's the Doctor and Adelaide and Adam and Mimi and Francis and Anthony, I think. There are so many characters. And it just was like, I just needed 4 focused. I needed a very direct, intentional character followed plot instead of just this. There was also so many things about this plot that I just didn't really like. The way it twisted and turned, I felt like it just was random and served no purpose, and it had no forethought. It never appeared before. And there was one particular relationship that I was like, it was totally hinting at the whole time. And then at the end, it turned out to be completely different. And I don't like how it had no setup before, really. And so I was very disappointed in this. I just felt like it was underdeveloped. And it was only 300 pages, so it could have been a bit more, but I don't think I would have wanted it to be a bit more either, because I just didn't want, I want it to be over. So I gave it 2 stars because it isn't an awful book, but it is not a book that I would consider recommending to anyone. I did understand that people who love Jane Austen are told to love this book. And yes, it did talk about Jane Austen a lot and her characters, but I also was like, I also heard that this was a retelling of like certain characters would be reliving certain events in the books, and I didn't see it. So I only saw that with 1 character, to be honest. 2 characters, 1 romance, and that was disappointing. So yeah, 2 stars. I don't really recommend it, but I mean, feel free to check it out if you would like to have a fictionalized version of how Jane Austen Society was started, because there is an incredible story out there that is the truth. The next book that I want to talk about that I finished for the reading rush was A Study in Scarlet by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. So this one I found to be quite good in most ways, but I found a disconnect. So there's this amazing mystery of how this man died, why did he die, and how did this murderer get away with killing him in this home? So it's very confusing. But then the struggle comes for me when about halfway through, so like this book is about, at least in this edition, it's like 73 pages. So halfway through, 35 pages in, it changes to being a mystery, like not mystery, but it's going back and telling the history of what happened. The pre-story to this mystery and the motive, and it's a very long one, and it just doesn't feel connected at all. The pre-motive takes place in America, so there's nothing related to Sherlock Holmes, and I just felt like it was too disconnected for my liking. It didn't work for me very well, and that was unfortunate. So it was good, but not my favorite setting or design of storytelling at the very least, and I do know that another Sherlock Holmes has that format, and another one doesn't. So I'm hoping that maybe the next one that I'm gonna read, which is The Sign of 4, doesn't have that. So we'll see. So the next one that I actually read 2 e-arcs that one of them I had been needing to get to for a little bit, and one I just got, so I was very excited to get to right away. So the one that I had been holding on to for a little while, as I was not able to physically read it on my Kindle, my eyes weren't working with it, but that would be Death by Shakespeare, Stabbings, Snake Bites and Broken Hearts, I believe, by Catherine Harkup. So this one is an analytical look at how Shakespeare wrote characters and how they died. It is something that was kind of gory, but I can handle the gore if I know it's coming. There were lots of descriptions of executions that were a little jarring, but it was very fact forward. It was very much how it actually would have been. It also covered things in Shakespeare's life that he would have had to live through, like plagues and public executions or public displays of violence. There were lots of things like that. It also went through how the playwrights would have written plays and how these plays would have been put on for the public. I found it all to be very interesting, even if it was a little gory at parts, so that's something to know going in. But it definitely was good in my opinion. I thought it did exactly what it said it was gonna do, and I enjoyed listening to it as an audiobook as well. So I recommend that, or reading it in general. It was a really good book. So I'm giving it 4 out of 5 stars. The last book that I want to talk about is probably, it's my favorite book of the week, I think, by far. And that would be The Haunting at Bonaventure Circus by Jamie Jo Wright. I really loved this, obviously. I gave it 5 stars, obviously. It is a suspense mystery novel, and it has a very strong Christian theme to it. If that is not your thing, I'm sorry, but I still think you should check out this mystery book because it's amazing. It also has a slight romance through both timelines. It is dual timeline, but it is not a heavy aspect. It is not the main focus. So in these timelines, first of all, you follow Pippa, who is the daughter of a circus owner. She is adopted. Her identity is a big part of her timeline and what she's trying to figure out with her identity. So that's part of her, and that is in 1928, I believe. And then in present day, you have Chandler, and she is a single mom, and she restores buildings. She also has an autoimmune disease, and she is trying to keep on top of her job while also being sick and having to take care of her son all by herself. And then mystery happens. In the first timeline, we don't really know what's going on, but the circus is being sabotaged in some ways, and it's very confusing for those around them. And especially because there's this watchman character who is following Pippa around, and she believes that he has what's best in her best intentions at heart. Everyone else believes different, and it's kind of revealed throughout the story what's true. Then in the current timeline, you have Chandler, who just bought this place, and she discovers that it used to be the office for the circus, but someone died there. A woman named Patty died there, and something went wrong, and something's gone on, and there are ghosts and everything else. I thought it was wonderful, brilliant. I loved it. I couldn't figure it out. I raved about it in my vlog if you want to check it out. But yeah, highly recommend, and it comes out September 1st. So there is one more thing, because I did finish 6 books, start and finish 6 books within that time frame, but I did finish another book which I will not be discussing as a Reading Rush book. It will be in my other wrap up, which is War and Peace. I finished it out in the week, but I'll discuss it there. So I did technically finish 7 books within the week. So those are the 6 books that I read during the Reading Rush. I do know that there was some controversy over the Reading Rush after the fact. I did not really go on Twitter at all. I have a Twitter handle, but I don't use Twitter. So I don't really know what was going on there, but I did enjoy myself with forcing myself to read more books, like pushing myself and challenging myself. But I do hope that I can learn from this experience with what's going on in the community about the Reading Rush and see what happens in the future. So I hope that this will be a good learning experience for all involved. So those are the 6 books that I started and finished throughout the week, and I finished also War and Peace. So I think 2,009 pages I added up the total, which is very exciting, and that is only part 2 of my 3-part wrap-up this month, which I can't believe I'm doing 3 wrap-ups, just so we can have good reviews of everything. So thank you for watching this review wrap-up, and I hope to see you again for more videos down the line, especially for my next wrap up, because I do have several books to talk about there. So I'll see you then. Bye for now.